Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee. It's December the 4th, and we're 1 minute after 1 o'clock. I'm Tony Mancini, the current chair of the committee. So first of all, I'd like to call this meeting to order and start off by acknowledging that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges that the peace and friendship treaty signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So the first item on the agenda today is the election, the annual election of the chair. So that's the first thing we have to do. And let me go to my script here. So I'm going to go to Madam Chair to walk us through the process. If you wouldn't mind, Dorothy?
Councillor, I would like to call for nominations for the position of chair for the committee.
I'm seeing Councillor Austin chiming in. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Soon-to-be ex-chair, I guess. I'd like to nominate Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Councillor Gable, we have a seconder by Councillor Hartling. Councillor Daigle Gammon, do you accept that nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Dorothy?
Any other nominations for the position of chair? Perfect. Can we get a seconder, a mover and seconder to appoint Councillor Daigle Gammon?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those not in favor say nay. Awesome. Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I hand the chair over, I'd like to say a few words, if I may. I got elected in 2016, and this is one of the first committees I joined. The environment has always been something very special to me, and I learned a lot. But early in that 2016, I went to a conference in Vancouver, BC, and I heard about something called Extended Producer Responsibility at that conference that they were doing in BC and other parts across the country, and I learned a lot. And then I said, hey, man, this has got to happen here. And so came back here. I was already in the works provincially somewhat. I joined the regional chairs that Councillor Hartling is on, and with my colleagues, regional chairs, worked really hard on extended producer responsibility. And Shannon Betts, I don't see Shannon here, but Shannon plays a big role in that. So here it is, December 2025. We now have extended producer responsibility in our province and in HRM. I think it's a game changer. Not only will it save this municipality money, but it's putting less items in the landfill. It's also going to change the packaging and the products that we'll see here, which is all good for the environment. So really proud of the work that everybody involved in that. And so I wish Shannon was here because she played a big role in that. So that was amazing. Also, in joining during that time, we started to learn about climate change at a level that I hadn't understood before. Former Richard Zarowski was the one that educated me and many of us about climate change. And so that led to us declaring a climate emergency here. We're the second municipality in the country to do that. And then it led us to coming up with Halifax that we discuss on a regular basis. And not only did we come up with a strategy of how to manage climate change, we figured out how to pay for it, which wasn't an easy conversation with many of our residents. And we're well underway. We're going to hear about the Lake Watchers program later on in this presentation. It's one of the things I'm also most proud of, because there's a motion I brought forward we have to look at monitoring our lake system that we used to do, but our former CEO canceled that program, and we got it back. And then they came up with the Lake Watchers program, which has been hugely successful. I'm very proud of. So I'm really pleased to my colleagues who allowed me to chair all these years. I wanted to stay on here till we saw EPR come to reality. December 1, it's now in place. So I'm really excited about that. And the last word before I hand it over to a very capable chair, to Cathy Daigle Gammon. Halifax is important, but it's under threat in this budget season right now. And there's I think a lot of things we need to take a look at. But one of the things we need to protect the most is not to tackle the budget of Halifax. It's too important for a whole bunch of reasons that I'll definitely share once we get into the budget conversation. So, Jonas, to your team, thank you very much for all the work that they do. Amazing work. I'll always be in your corner for that work. So, thank you, colleagues, for allowing me to take those few moments. Councillor, our Chair, Daigle Gammon, I hand over the chair to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Past Chair Mancini. I promise everyone I will not sit in this seat for 9 years. Big shoes to fill. No, actually, it was actually very much a compliment. Very much a compliment. So we'll now move on to the next item in our agenda. Just going to take me a second here to sign in. But it is the election of vice chair. So we would ask for nominations for the position of vice chair. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor White for vice chair.
Seconded by Councillor Steele. Councillor White, do you accept the nomination? Great. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? And I think I need to do it 3 times. So for the third and final time, are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Hearing none, we'll ask for a motion for Councillor Laura White to be the vice chair of the Environment, Sustainability and Standing Committee. Motion by Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Steele. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Hesitant. Yeah. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And the next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of October 2nd. Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Steele. Madam Clerk, are there any errors or omissions in the minutes before we call for the question? Then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hands. Nay, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Approval of the order of business and the approval of additions or deletions. Madam Clerk Dorothy, do we have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you very much. So a motion to approve. We'll take Councillor Hartling and second it by Councillor Steele. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hands. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Business arising out of the minutes, there are none. A call for the declaration of conflict of interests. Seeing none. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Consideration of deferred business, none. Notices of table matters, none. Which moves us to correspondence. Madam Clerk Dorothy, do we have any correspondence, petitions, or delegations?
No correspondence or petitions were received by the clerk's office.
Thank you very much. So now we get to our presentations, and we welcome Pulkit Gupta, TCX Energy Solar Garden. Welcome, Mr. Gupta. You have 10 minutes to present, and when you're nearing the final minute or so, Dorothy will hold up a little notice to let you know.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just give me 1 second. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me your time today. My name is Pulkit Gupta. I also go by my initials, so if you'd like to call me PG, that's also fine. I'm here to talk about a simple idea, one that can change the future of Nova Scotia's clean energy future. But before we begin, I would like to talk about something important. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This is governed by peace and friendship treaties, which remind us of the responsibility we carry to honor the commitments and...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have a presentation as well? Dorothy might help get that up on the screen for everyone.
okay.
So apologies to interrupt, but we want to make sure we get the full value of your presentation.
Oh, there we go. It's moving.
There you go. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dorothy.
So I'll go again. I want to acknowledge that we are gathered here today in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This is governed by the Peace and Friendship Treaties, which reminds us of the responsibility we carry to honor the commitments made between peoples and to care for the land and each other. With this grounding in place, I'd like to share who I am and why I am here today. As I mentioned, my name is Pulkit Gupta. I came to Nova Scotia when I was 19 years old as an undergraduate student to study computer science in Acadia University in 2021. I grew up in Dubai, but I was born in India, and yet over the past 4 years, Nova Scotia has been my home in a way that no other country or place could be. And this is where I've learned, struggled, made mistakes, and grown up and built my life. I don't have a family here, just me. But this province welcomed me anyway, and because of that, I want to give something back, something that lasts, something that creates jobs, pride, and opportunity for the next generation of Nova Scotia. And this is why I created TCX Energy. And now that you know about me, let me show you why Nova Scotia needs this. So the challenges Nova Scotia faces today aren't just theoretical; they are real. They are measurable and urgent. Let me walk you through the first challenge. So right now, Nova Scotia relies 100% on imported solar hardware. Every panel, every inverter, every racking structure, everything is imported. That means we have no control over costs, timelines, quality, and availability of our panels. If a ship is delayed, a factory overseas shuts down, or tariff changes, our climate goals gets pushed back. We are building clean energy on someone else's schedule. A province cannot build its future on a supply chain it does not control. And that leads directly to our second challenge, the speed barrier. We need solar fast. Coal is being phased out, 2030 targets are approaching, and our timelines are already tight. But imported solar comes slowly, actually very slowly. Shipping delays, custom delays, and currency changes. By the time hardware arrives, projects slip months behind schedule. We cannot meet 2030 climate targets if we are waiting for a ship. Let's go a little deeper because the third problem hits Nova Scotia economically. Every solar panel purchased sends money, skills, and jobs out of Nova Scotia, and that's millions of dollars leaving the province every year. Nova Scotia is currently a consumer of clean energy hardware, and we have the opportunity today to become a producer. We could be sending Nova Scotian products across Atlantic Canada, maybe the rest of Canada and the world. We could be exporting jobs instead of opportunities. And finally, the fourth challenge. We have a very big innovation deficit. Without local manufacturing, we have no solar research and development, no hardware intellectual property, no recycling ecosystem, no circular economy. It will be hard to innovate if we are not building them here. Innovation follows manufacturing, and if we don't manufacture, we don't innovate. So with this in mind, what do? And that's where TCX Energy comes in with our TCX solution. Let me show you how we will fix every one of the problems directly, locally, and permanently. We will start with building a local manufacturing hub. We want to build Nova Scotia's first solar module assembly plant, a real manufacturing hub, built here, staffed here, and supplying here. With local inventory and long-term supply contracts, Nova Scotia will finally have control over timelines, costs, and quality. So like if we started here, we will be saving 14 to 18 cents every panel, which is a lot of money. Like if you look at it, like in long, like big projects. So that's just one of the problems. Now, how do we deploy this energy quickly? We will create a rapid build-out program. We will standardize plug-and-play solar gardens, which means that a pre-engineered kit with panels, racking, inverters, wiring, and logistics, all coming together, ready for quick deployment. This means 10 megawatt solar gardens can be replicated across the province quickly and predictably, reducing delays and accelerating the coal phase out. But manufacturing and deployment are only half of the story. The Made in Nova Scotia value loop, this is the most important part. We want to keep spending in province by creating long-term jobs in manufacturing, construction, operations, and maintenance. We want to partner with local colleges, Mi'kmaq communities, and municipalities for training, ownership stakes, and for long-term revenue sharing. And there's one more piece to it, which is the innovation. We will fix the innovation deficit by building a cold climate solar research and development hub, advanced racking and flag array testing, a solar recycling and refurbishment line. So this means that end of life solar panels, they will become a local resource rather than a landfill waste. And with the data from our projects, we can continuously improve the hardware and build Nova Scotia made clean tech intellectual property. Nova Scotia can lead Atlantic Canada in solar innovation, and that brings me to what we are asking from HRM today. We are asking HRM for three things. First is land. We need support in identifying a suitable site so that we can start solar manufacturing and recycling hub. We want to partner with HRM. We want collaboration with HRM departments, colleges, and communities. And last, the municipal endorsement, also support, so that we can begin building TCX Energy's first and Nova Scotia's first manufacturing unit in Nova Scotia. And also this will help us to apply for funds through GMF, which is the Green Municipal Funds. This is not about grants. This isn't about subsidies. This is about partnership building, something that will keep money, jobs, and opportunity right here in Nova Scotia. We have a real opportunity to build a clean energy industry that belongs to Nova Scotians, one that creates long-term jobs, supports Mi'kmaq communities, strengthens local colleges, and helps us meet our climate goals on our own terms. Let's build it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Just waiting to see if we've got any questions for the presenter. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Just curious, and maybe I missed it there early on as I was logging in. TCX, are you a nonprofit or is it a private company?
As of now, we are just a sole proprietorship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting idea, but the main ask about municipal land, we're limited in our charter what we can do on that, especially, it's only nonprofits that we're able to do that kind of creativity with. So I don't know about that piece, but, there might be other opportunities in terms of collaboration that look different than, giving up a piece of municipal public property.
That's totally good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Really interesting concept. I wonder if you've been speaking with more the Economic Development Department at the provincial government level in terms of energy, the environment. I'm wondering if perhaps they would be a better target audience initially than the municipality, and then as you have your investors and you have some buy-in from other partners, it may be more appropriate. So curious as to what outreach you've made to them so far.
I did a validation test if this idea is really needed in the province. So I just sent emails to all the distributors in the province, and most of them they told me what are the problems they're facing. So they were so the problems that I told you today, those were the main problems that people the distributors and the installers are actually facing in Nova Scotia and PEI and Newfoundland. So that was the main thing. The validation test was the only thing I did, and I was okay, I need to present this idea as soon as possible, and once I get the support letter, maybe then I can go further on the idea, because I'm more into manufacturing. I come from a very heavy background of manufacturing, so I was okay, if I can present it and if I can get the support, I will just have to go to exact places where I know where I can get the machines and bring them to Nova Scotia and start producing, solar panels. So, I mean, it's just a concept right now, nothing too concrete, but I'm willing to go further.
Okay. There are business navigation services at the provincial government, and I think they would be able to sort of direct you to next steps in terms of having real conversations with potential provincial partners in that area. I think we have your coordinates. We can provide you with some of those guideposts in terms of accessing those services. So I can share that with Dorothy and she can share it with you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Vice Chair White.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering if you have had any conversations with NSCC. I used to work there, so it could...
In Nova Scotia, but
Yeah.
I did find, it was luck, I would say, but I did find a professor who teaches people how to put solar panels. So he was really interested. He was like, I will come to Nova Scotia if we have to do this. And he sort of took the role of a trainer to teach people how to put the panels all together. So yeah, that's the conversation I've had so far.
Okay. Well, NSCC does a lot of programs with,
Yep, I
with
do understand.
entrepreneurship and clean energy, so I would definitely refer you there to get off the ground too. Thanks for coming and educating us today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in and sharing your presentation. We appreciate it. And now we'll move on to the next item in our agenda, which is public participation. Now, as of 4:30 yesterday, there were no registered speakers for the meeting, so we will call 3 times. Is there anyone in the gallery that would wish to speak? The second time, is there anyone from the gallery that would wish to speak? For the third and final time, is there anyone from the gallery that would wish to speak? Hearing none, we'll move on in our agenda then to item 12, which is information items brought forward. There are none. And we'll go to reports. 13.1.1 is our proposed 2026 meeting schedule. If anyone would like to put that motion on the floor to accept that meeting schedule. Councillor Steele, thank you. Seconded by Vice Chair White. Councillor Steele?
Oh, yes, I'll read the motion. Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee approved the proposed 2026 Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee meeting schedule as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Thank you so much. And that was seconded by Vice Chair White. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. And now, item 13.1.2 is the Lake Watchers 2022-24 update. We're very happy to have Chris Kennedy, the Water Quality Monitoring Program Coordinator, to present and available to answer any questions. Also see in the background Emma there. Welcome. So we'll have our presentation and then we'll put the motion on the floor. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Could I get the presentation put up on the screen here? I have it here, but I don't see it. Thank you. There we are. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this time to talk to you about lakes and the Lake Watchers program. My name is Chris Kennedy, and I work within on the environment team within the Property, Fleet, and Environment Business Unit. My main role is as the Lake Watchers coordinator. So today I'm here to talk to you about the second annual State of the Lakes report and relay some of the findings from the first 3 years of the program that covers 2022 to 2024. So I'll get started by just talking quickly about what is the Lake Watchers program. So at its core, Lake Watchers is a community-based water quality monitoring program that involves and engages residents in lake stewardship. So you can see on the screen there from left to right, we hold equipment workshops to help teach volunteers on how to use the sampling equipment, as well as the standardized sampling procedure. We do this at workshops, like I say, on the far left of your screen, during sampling and in situ, you see in the middle of your screen. And then finally, volunteers are able to graduate to independent sampling, and that's what you see on the far right of your screen. And lastly, we hire a consultant team to complete any lakes that we don't have volunteers for. So the program was launched in the spring of 2022, and in that first round, you'll see we had consultants complete all the lakes just to get the program off the ground. But since then, we've seen very steady growth in volunteer participation, having 15 lakes with volunteers in the summer of 2022, growing to 45 in the August period of 2024. So this is something we're really, really proud of. And I think it really shows the importance of lakes to people who live around them, that they're willing to give up their extra time and energy to volunteer and participate with the program. Okay, so really quickly, this is a map of the 70 plus lakes that we're currently monitoring. Really, all I want to draw your attention to here is that the municipality is very large and there's a lot of lakes, and we're monitoring a fraction of them. So the municipality is big, but we're monitoring lakes that are big, lakes that are small, deep, shallow, urban, and rural. So the idea is we're sampling all sorts of lakes situated in all sorts of different contexts. So this is in order to provide an understanding of current lake health in the region, and this will provide the ability to hopefully identify concerning trends in advance and offer the opportunity to deploy proactive solutions to address those rather than more costly reactive ones after the fact. And so an example of that might be the Lake Bannock Nuisance Aquatic Weed Harvesting Program. All right, before we go any further, I do want to talk about the annual lake cycle, because this will make some of the results I talk about later make more sense. So basically, lakes will go through an annual cycle where they go through two states. That's stratified and mixed. So you'll see stratified on the left hand of your screen, the top and bottom in the summer and winter, lakes are stratified. And in the fall and the spring, they'll mix, or they'll go through what is known as lake turnover. And so this is important because all summer long, things are growing and depositing nutrients which fall to the bottom of the lake. And that turnover helps mix the lake up and brings all those nutrients back to the top where things need them, and helps to keep a balance in the ecosystem. So this annual cycle is driven by changing water temperatures and changing water densities. And so I've highlighted the summertime on the far right hand of your screen to help illustrate that. So what happens is, as the sun's energy shines down in the summertime, it'll warm up the upper surface of the lake. That'll make that upper surface warmer, obviously, and become lighter and less dense. It'll end up floating atop a colder, more dense layer of water at the bottom. So this isn't unlike an experiment you may have done back in grade school in science class, where you may have put different density liquids into a beaker and seen how they separate out. That's precisely what's happening here, except it's being driven by temperature and water densities. Okay, so as the summer draws to a close, as the summer draws to a close, we go into the fall period, and so what will happen is the sun's energy will wane, and it will deposit less energy into that upper surface of the lake, and it will cool off, and eventually it will reach the same temperature as that colder water beneath, and that's what stimulates that turnover that you'll see. And then we go into the winter, an ice layer will form, and we'll have the lake stratified again, and then into spring, that ice will melt, the lake will become the same temperature, it will mix again, cycling those nutrients for the summertime when growth will happen. Okay, so the Lake Watchers program is primarily looking after three concerns for local lakes. These aren't concerns that are unique to Halifax. These are concerns broadly across most cities in temperate environments. And so over the next few slides, what I'm going to do is go into more detail on all three of these. So the first is eutrophication, or nutrient enrichment. The second is salinization, or chloride enrichment. And finally, bacterial contamination. Like I say, over the next few slides, I'll talk about some of the current impacts, relay some of the early trends we've seen in the first 3 years of the data, and at the end of the presentation, hopefully offer some practical solutions in the form of recommendations to address some of the recreational concerns around bacterial contamination at our supervised beach sites. Okay, so we'll start with eutrophication. Broadly, this is the process of a low nutrient lake moving to a high nutrient lake. So like the graphic shows, basically what happens here is more nutrients means more algae and more plants. So this nutrient pollution will allow for more plants and algae to grow. It's feeding them, which will discourage recreational activities. I don't think anyone likes to swim with weeds pulling out their legs. I think we've all experienced that. And it can also become a nuisance for boaters and paddlers, and occasionally lead to toxic and harmful algae blooms. So most lakes in the HRM region are naturally toward that far left hand of this graphic in the oligotrophic end of things. And so it doesn't take very many nutrients to start pushing them into those higher nutrient level lake environments. Okay, so quickly I'll go through where the nutrients come from. So of course there are natural inputs to lakes, and these are things like natural soil erosion, plant matter decaying, wildlife droppings, and the like. However, these things all get deposited very slowly, and that natural nutrient cycling that I was talking about can handle this and can prevent a lake from becoming overly nutrified over time. But in more urban environments, a major source of nutrient pollution to lakes is urban stormwater runoff. So this is because whenever it rains in these areas, impervious and paved surfaces prevent that water from infiltrating into the ground. And so instead, that rainwater is able to collect on paved surfaces and collect all sorts of pollutants and from parking lots, roadways, other impervious surfaces before entering a storm drain and being quickly deposited into the nearest lake often. So this includes things like lawn fertilizers, detergents from car washing, but also just erosion and sediments that escape construction sites. All of these things bring nutrients to lakes and are used by plants and algae. Okay, so some of the current impacts we have are we're seeing more and more resident reports of more aquatic plants growing in places where they have always grown, and we'll see more plants, or in places where they haven't previously, as well as more and more reports of algae growth. And so you can see that in some of the pictures I've got on the right-hand side of your screen. And also, I talked earlier about the Lake Banook weed harvesting project. You'll see on the top of your screen there, that's the vessel that does that. And there's one of the contractors illustrating some of those weeds that get harvested from the lake, as a result of excess nutrients. All right, so some of the early trends are that most of the monitored lakes that we're looking at are being impacted by nutrient enrichment. We see this in elevated levels of chlorophyll, which show that there's more algae in the water. We also see deep water oxygen loss in the summertime, which is highly associated with more nutrient-rich lakes. Apologies. And we're also seeing evidence for what's known as internal loading, and that's nutrient release from sediments at the bottoms of lakes. And this only occurs when oxygen levels are low for long periods of time, which is occurring more and more often. Okay, so we'll move quickly to salinization. And so salinization, broadly speaking, is the process of a freshwater lake becoming salty over time. So we measure this by looking for the chloride ion. And so just for context, Nova Scotian lakes generally will have chloride levels around 10 milligrams per liter. And so I've brought the annual lake cycle back up here to show you. And so recall that this is driven by changing water densities. And so as we're adding more and more salt to this, that will affect the density of those layers and can interfere with this natural mixing cycle. Not only that, though, the CCME, so that's the Canadian Council of Ministers for the Environment, released guidelines for chloride for the protection of freshwater life. And so I've highlighted the two benchmarks I have here of 120 milligrams per liter for the long-term exposure. So this is periods lasting longer than 7 days or a week. And the short-term exposure limit is 640 milligrams per liter. And that's for acute exposures lasting a day and a half. So quickly, where does the salt come from? Well, it comes from salt. De-icing salts and road salt that is used to improve winter driving safety is the primary contributor of these to lakes. And so anytime it rains, that salty runoff is carried to storm drains, where it will end up in lakes. And so I think it's just important to highlight that yesterday was one of our first snow events, and we saw salt beginning to get spread around the municipality. This is going to happen until March or April of next year. All that salt has to end up somewhere. A lot of it ends up in our lakes. Okay, and so it's not entirely surprising that there's a pretty clear link between lakes that have elevated chloride levels being located in some of the more developed parts of the HRM. So these are places that have a lot of paved and impervious surfaces that require a lot of winter salting to maintain road safety. And so there's a couple kind of nodes, if you will, that jump out from this list. But between 2022 and 2024, there were 9 monitored lakes that had chloride levels that were routinely above that long-term CCME level, and 5 lakes that exceeded that guideline during every single monitoring event. So I think we can say with reasonable confidence that the aquatic life in these lakes is being impacted by this, and that could be affecting things like algae blooms. Okay, lastly, we'll jump to bacterial contamination. This is largely almost always caused by fecal material, be it animal or human, making it to the aquatic environment. Now, because these are lakes, there are some things that live in and around them. There always will be some natural level of E. coli, albeit most of the time quite low. And in recognizing this, Health Canada has provided a 53-page manual, or rather addendum to their manual, strictly just on E. coli in lakes. But for what we need to know is that the number we're looking for is 235 CFU per 100 milliliters. That's in the bottom right of your screen there. CFU stands for colony forming units. And so that's basically live bacteria cells per 100 milliliters. So when bacteria levels are found to be above that, we would issue a beach water quality advisory. And when it's below that, then swimming is seen to be safe. So the sources of this bacteria, really quickly, wildlife wastes. Like I said, some of this is natural, but wide open and mowed spaces around lakes can often encourage waterfowl and geese, and sometimes feeding of those waterfowl, to congregate and magnify their impact in recreational areas especially. Also, leaking and undersized septic systems can contribute to this, as well as improperly disposed pet waste. And of course, urban stormwater runoff can carry all sorts of things to lakes, including organic matter, lots of things that bacteria like to eat and grow with. And so urban stormwater runoff, of course, is a major contributor. So some of the early trends that we've seen in bacterial contamination. Now, despite there being a dramatic increase in the number of beach closures and water quality advisories that were issued for the 19 municipally supervised beach sites in recent years, we've seen more and more. E. coli was only detected above the guidelines in the Lake Watchers program 8 times. Now, 7 of those were in the summer and only 1 was in the spring. And so we've since discontinued spring sampling. We're focusing all our E. coli sampling now in the summertime. So really quickly, before I go from this slide, in the bottom right, I've got 3 categories here. So we have bacteria being not detected in green, and that's just below 2 colony forming units per 100. And so in that case, the lab simply can't even detect it. And then the second one is we detect it, but it's within the healthy guideline. And then the third in orange is detected above guideline. And so the springtime is on the left, and you'll see the vast majority of the time is in green. We're not even detecting the E. coli in the water. It's so low. Whereas in the summertime, we are detecting it quite often, but it's very often well below that guideline. And of course, one of the other things that we pulled from this is that we were getting more E. coli detection near shore sampling locations rather than mid-lake sampling locations, which is indicative that it is the shoreline environment that is contributing these E. coli sources. Okay, so this has led to 2 recommendations. The first is to direct staff to add supervised beaches, the 8 listed here, to the existing naturalization strategy. So the thinking here is that the naturalization strategy can be employed to improve water quality at supervised beaches. It already exists, and by adding these beach sites to it, it would allow parks to incorporate them into their annual budgeting and planning. So we have pilot projects like this installed currently at Birch Cove and in Penhorn Lake that are showing promising results. They're reducing shoreline erosion, they're deterring waterfowl from congregating in those areas, and they're intercepting some of that stormwater runoff that would normally just run directly to the lake. And so through projects like this, the municipality can both improve water quality at these supervised beach sites, ideally reducing the incidence of beach water quality advisories, but also set a positive example for responsible shoreline management. The second recommendation not dissimilar, is to direct staff to explore shoreline and in-lake green infrastructure options to address stormwater discharge locations that are near or within 100 meters of these supervised beach locations. So across the municipality, there are a number of locations where untreated stormwater is discharged directly into a lake very near to a supervised beach area where we encourage people to swim. And by installing something, shoreline or in-lake green infrastructure solutions, we're likely to both improve overall water quality in the lake, but ideally improve water quality at those recreational spaces where we're encouraging people to swim. Thank you. That's it. I'll take questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. Councillor Mancini?
Do you mind if I go first with the motion? My mic wasn't working properly. She just fixed it.
Go for it.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Chris, thanks very much, man. I really appreciate this work. I know for Sam and I and others, we're excited about this work. I do need to share with you when I talked to the lakes that you were, especially the Dartmouth area, obviously, that you're working with, the volunteers, the residents, praise your work and your enthusiasm, your passion. It's repeated over and over again. So thank you, sir, for that. I just have a few questions on the presentation.
Excuse me, Councillor Mancini, did you want to start with the motion, please? Thank you.
I'll put the motion on the floor. Sorry. Yeah, I know. That the Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee recommend the Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to 1, direct staff to add the supervised beaches at Kinston Lake, Long Pond, Penhorn Lake, Albert Lake, Birch Cove, which is in Lake Manook, Lake Echo, Springfield Lake, Kearney Lake to the Naturalizations Program. And 2, direct staff to explore shoreline and in-lake green infrastructure options for addressing stormwater discharge locations within 100 meters of supervised lake.
Seconded by Councillor Steele. Thank you, Councillor Mancini.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. So where do I start? In that list you had of all the lakes and the impact of the lakes, I went to my colleague to my right and said, take a look at how many of those are in Dartmouth, right? And so we are the city of lakes, and it's so concerning because our lakes are being stressed for all the reasons that you mentioned. I wonder if you could just comment. Of what's been happening with our regional plan and our desire to go 30 meters back, and that was overridden by the province and saying no, that we're not going to do that. It's at 20 meters. Could you just talk about what's the impact? They'd be further away than even 20 meters when there's development from our water courses, and particularly our lakes.
Of course, yes. Through the chair to the councillor. A buffer, a riparian buffer around lakes and waterways is a very important way to protect water quality, and it might be the simplest, single thing that we can do, as a society to protect water quality is just build further away from it. That riparian buffer provides a lot of ecosystem services to protect water quality. It intercepts the runoff, which is a lot of what we're trying to do, and go back and re-put a riparian buffer where there once was one. So a lot of times when we talk green infrastructure, that's exactly what we're doing. We're putting plants back where there once were, and we just want to let them do their job. So like I say, increasing the riparian buffer, it intercepts stormwater. It helps to infiltrate things. It helps to deter waterfowl from congregating in places and depositing, lots and lots of their waste in places where we like to swim. And so,
it's my time here, but we'll continue to go down that path. I don't think that fight's over yet. We'll continue to go down that path. It's interesting, the E. coli and you talked about what describes that. You look at Albert Lake in Sam's area and Lake Manook in my area, the Canada geese, as iconic as they are and as beautiful they are, my goodness, what a mess it really is. And you talked about it's the shoreline water that's most effective. And I saw it firsthand at Penhorn Lake. I spent a lot of time in Penhorn Lake. I mean, we couldn't use it. You couldn't let kids in the water, and it was those Canada geese. I know for colleagues, you may not be aware of this, our environment team is bringing forward a program that we're going to hear about in the future about about Canada geese, and hopefully have some sort of response to that. I see the recommendations, and you didn't speak about the results of the naturalization programs we've already done, and the Inlet Green infrastructure that we've already done. Do you have any stats around that? Is that obviously we're assuming the work is done, it's been effective, but I didn't see that in your presentation because that's part of your recommendation.
That's right, yeah. So through the chair to the councillor, we do have 2 pilot projects. One at Penhorn was just installed this year, I believe. Yes, just installed this year, and the one at Birch Cove the year prior. So while I included that we are seeing promising results, we don't have anything quantitative yet. We are seeing, waterfowl are being deterred. There are less geese congregating in those locations, and we can see visually that it intercepts stormwater, but we don't have any quantitative measures for those yet.
I'll come back. My time's up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Hartling.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am wondering if, just based off of the data that you gave us in this presentation, whether you're drawing any conclusions or thoughts as to why the presence of E. coli is so much higher in the summer. You pointed at many possible factors. Most of those factors seem to me to be year-long or throughout the year potential contaminants. So I'm wondering whether you're starting to knit together some thoughts about, possible actions that you could, or possible sources or reasonable sources of contamination, and what you might look at moving forward. Thank you.
Yes, so through the chair to the councillor, most of the E. coli we see in the summertime is strictly driven by the warmer water temperatures. And so we kind of saw that bear out in the data. We were sampling in the springtime for E. coli, and we were very, very rarely seeing kind of any E. coli activity. So after 3 years of doing that, we decided that money could be better spent elsewhere, and we've since discontinued doing the E. coli sampling in the spring. And so we're focusing on the time when people are using the water, and it coincides with when we're also sampling for the Beachwater Quality Monitoring Program, which monitors at beaches for E. coli. And so the reason we're checking mid-lake and near lake is to see, is this problem widespread, or is it generally confined to the nearshore environment? And that's what we're seeing.
No, if I could rephrase my question, I guess when you gave us the possible sources of E. coli contaminations, there were things like, septic, geese. I'm just wondering, is given that it seems to be very summer centric in terms of problems, whether you're, starting to identify more root causes and thinking about what we would be doing moving forward.
So through the chair to the councillor. So like I said, it is all primarily driven by water temperature. The warmer water temperature allows the E. coli to grow much easier and faster. So the problems are year round. They're happening all the time.
It's just that in the summer months.
It's strictly the cold water inhibits growth. And so
Gotcha.
we generally will not see high E. coli counts in the colder water in the spring, and it's much more likely to proliferate and grow quickly when given the conditions in the summertime when the water's warmer.
Is that why you see it more on the shoreline as well, just because it's warmer water?
That's in part because it is warmer water. It gets more sun. The sun can also heat the bottom of the lake, which can
That's what I mean,
as well. But also E. coli and other pathogens will often they'll sit in the sediments. So the sediments themselves, the sand of beaches, act as a reservoir for a lot of these pathogens. And so a lot of times it's that material being mixed up by a swimmer or a wader that can actually, infuse the water with the pathogen at the moment you're recreating. And so, a lot of times we only see E. coli when it's being stirred up from the bottom. And so it requires something to be doing that, and that generally happens toward near shore. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hartling. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair, and thank you to staff for the work on this. This is a important program, and I think we're producing some meaningful results out there. Very supportive of the naturalization recommendations. I've seen Birch Cove and Penhorn, and hopefully in the future we'll add up most of the rest of our lakes too to those pilots. The piece I was wanting to ask about, just in the recommendation, because I think it's a good set of recommendations in terms of now we're getting several years worth of data, so you can start to see what's happening. But I kind of feel like it's missing a number 3, that there's a dance around around, hey, winter works, folks. What about the stuff you're pouring on the streets? Maybe it's time to, I mean, I know that there's been efforts made around brining to reduce that salt use, but there are other alternatives too that I think, maybe, I think about calcium acetate or whatever it's called there. Which is effective, but, considerably more expensive, whether or not we should be hybridizing. And in lakes where we're sitting here with a lot of red that are staying way above their salt contents, we should be taking a second look at this to say, well, what are the alternatives, and is the extra cost, something we want to do, considering that, having 9 urban lakes here that never, I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 5 of them that never ever go back below the long-term salt content. Like, that's a problem. And I feel like, have we had conversations with the Winter Works? Like, and why? And if so, why is there not a third piece here about their operations?
That's a great question. So through to the chair, to the councillor, you'll recall in the first State of the Lakes report, one of our recommendations was to review the municipality salt management plan. So that I understand that has been tendered out by the winter maintenance team, and so that is underway.
Okay, so it's not here because we're already taking a look at that. Okay, well, isn't that a fantastic answer to a question? Do we know when that will come back?
Or January.
Oh, well, there we go. I think that's what a happy day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Austin asked one of the questions that I was going to ask about in terms of the salt management plan and particularly how we control the salt usage around our lakes. So I think you've answered that more or less. So my other question relates to development projects around lakes and, the potential runoff from those into lakes. And I'm thinking of a lake that's not exactly in my district, but I think of it as being in my district, and that's Carney Lake. And I know there's large proposed developments all around there. How do we take the information that we have into consideration when we're approving development projects? And I know they're underway and approved, some of them. So I'm just curious on, how we use the information that we have to influence planning and development decisions.
Do you want to take that one?
Good afternoon, Chair. Through the chair to the councillor, my name is Emma Waddy. I'm the manager of environment with Environment and Climate Change, and we work fairly closely with planning and development. So we participate in the planning review process when new development agreements are coming on board or new planning processes. Our planner to liaises back with planning, and we provide a lot of comments back on opportunities for green infrastructure, opportunities. For maintaining the buffer, opportunities for stormwater management on site, just to kind of any way to help slow down inputs into the lakes, or especially those lakes that are higher, more concern and more higher priority. The other thing I'll mention, just because you mentioned Carney Lake, is we're also piloting a floating wetland treatment process in Carney Lake that was approved or directed to by the previous council. We're partnering with the Center for Water Resource Studies to get that research underway. And currently those floating wetlands are in Little Carney Lake, and they'll be moved over to Carney Lake proper in the spring. And that would be like one way potentially that we could help mitigate some of the stormwater impacts in some of the higher developed areas. So that is one other research project we have underway. But absolutely, as Chris mentioned, by increasing the amount of impervious surface, it does increase the amount of runoff and kind of different nutrients and pollutants that it can pick up along the way. And in Nova Scotia, all of our stormwater directly enters the lakes, whereas in most other provinces, it has to be filtered through a wetland or some type of green infrastructure first. So the second recommendation, kind of just to follow back to the second recommendation we have to look at stormwater inputs in beaches. That also kind of points back to what Councillor Hartling was asking about too, like different ways that we're trying to decrease the amount of runoff entering water bodies, especially areas that we're recreating in.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Vice Chair White.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to my colleagues for all your questions. It's kind of the direction I'm going to, and you won't be surprised, but I'm going to ask. But okay, first is, are the motions here or the recommendations, did they apply to all three problems that you described? Did they help with all three problems or just the bacteria?
Broadly, they will help in those lakes. Yeah, broadly, they intercepting stormwater runoff and offering that stormwater runoff an opportunity to be treated in some way, whether that's through green infrastructure or another way, will overall improve the water quality. I mean, the quality of water being driven and directed toward lakes is anything that gets picked up on streets and parking lots and driveways, and so any way that we can intercept some of that and prevent any of it from getting into the lake, it will improve it for sure. Yes.
Okay, great. So, and that's where I'm going with this. Like, I know these are big issues, but do you work with our strategic infrastructure and planning, and do you work with transit, and do you highlight the root problem is everything's paved and we're driving on it and salting it? Like, this is the root problem. I know you can't fix that, but to keep that in the conversation about, we have so many things that we can't do unless we get more people moving in a different way, like health effect, like congestion, like road safety. So here's another one, or the health of our lakes that would be so much better if we got around differently. Do you communicate with your colleagues on that?
Yeah, so through the chair to the councillor, we do try to work with any departments where we intersect and can have an impact. More success with some than others in attempting to implement some of these changes. Some of them are bigger bang for the buck for less effort, and some of them are more effort and less. But we are working with other business units. Yes.
Okay. Well, I would appreciate you keep doing that and keep bringing it to our attention. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair White. Councillor Mancini, did you want to close?
No, I don't have to.
Pardon?
I don't have to close. No.
Okay, then you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris, I was going to bring up the around the lakes that Councillor Austin already brought up. We did talk about some sanding already going around some of our lakes, and so that's coming back in January. Glad to hear about that. That still have to be approved. There could be financial implications to that, so we'll all have to do our work in making sure we, once we see that report, I assume, support that and make it happen. If we can make it happen, my ask though is let's promote the hell out of this. We have to tell our residents it's happening. We need to make sure this is happening. If you live around the lake, it's going to change, and this is the reason why it's going to change. And if it's going to cost us more money, it's going to cost us more money but it's for the life of these lakes. So let's make sure we promote the heck out of it. Number two, in your slide presentation you had, and I've seen them all over the place, the little decal that's no dumping in our, is that almost mandatory around our lakes? And if not, can we create a program to get that done? To make sure those stickers go on all the catch basins around every lake that we have, or many of our lakes, or if there's a program that we can work on, if it needs funding. I really think that's important to be doing that. We've had situations where people are dumping their paint cans or whatever else into those drains, and they shouldn't be doing that anywhere. But if they live next to a lake, that's even that much more of an issue. So I'm not looking for an answer now, but unless you've got something in the works, but we should create some sort of a program on that, right?
There is something I could add if you'd like quickly.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
So through the chair to the councillor, I've learned those are installed by Halifax Water. They're often in response to a previous spill event.
Yep.
And so I haven't been in contact with them recently, and we are working on a program to have those installed around priority lakes where we know that chloride or other things are an issue. So I think the primary problem is I don't know that it's public knowledge that anything that goes down those drains goes to the lakes.
Right. So that's that education piece that needs to be part of that, right?
And so
look, another good answer from these guys, right? That's great, Chris. Councillor Steele is known as the councillor of stay in our lane, right? And she's right. And this work that we're doing, really, Councillor Steele and all of us, it's not really our work to be done. But once again, the province doesn't do the work. All right, and so we've stepped up, and that's fine, and I'm glad that we've taken on and make this in our lane. Another thing, Councillor Steele, you brought up is about development. Well, I go back to my earlier comment, the 30-meter setback. I mean, that's the huge positive impact that we need to continue to talk about. I ask my colleagues around the chambers here, talk to your MLA, get in that person's ear to talk about, go back to that province. We need to get this 30-meter setback in place. It is critical. It is. Finally, I just want to say I'm very proud of the work that you're doing, Chris, on this program, all of you. This is amazing. This, it's an interesting job. Many of us say, Sam and I talk about a lot, it's an interesting job that we have, and there's lots of frustrations with our job. This kind of work makes a difference. And so we need to continue on that path. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Goodness, I get to respond to Tony. No. And I'm curious. No, I'm not going to respond. I justify this because I see the lakes as a vital part of our recreation. So that's I think it's purely in our lane. I am curious about our involvement once again, kind of more on the development side of things. Thinking about the proposed special planning area at Sandy Lake, as well as as well as the Highway 102 West. I was going to refer to it as the Blue Mountain Birch Cove stuff. But, all the lakes there, Charlie's Lake, Ash Lake, Fox Lake. Do we have any engagement at all with those lakes? And, I don't know, are they part of Lake Watchers or, any of these kind of lakes that are more pristine because they're not yet affected by urban development. I'm just curious if we have any engagement on that side. And also, do we have any engagement in terms of providing input into the documentation that's being pulled together for provincial decision making?
Okay, through the chair to the councillor, I'll answer the first part of that question, then I'll hand it to Emma for the second part. So Kearney Lake, I think, is the one lake that is in that area that we are currently monitoring. The other ones that you mentioned were not, and as you rightly said, they're more on the pristine side. They don't have much built around them. They're not receiving much stormwater. So currently, the 70-odd lakes that we're looking at were selected through a process that identified lakes that were currently under stress and currently under pressure. And so that is how they were selected. Now, there are a few reference lakes included in that so that we have something to compare to.
I wondered about your benchmarking. Okay, great. Thank you.
And so we are currently undergoing a program review where we are going to be looking at different lakes and, possibly altering the frequency of sampling and things like that. And so there's always the opportunity to add new lakes, but there needs to be a compelling reason to be adding that extra expense and adding that extra data. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Through the chair to the councillor, one kind of fun fact is that we did try to have Ash Lake be one of the reference lakes, but because it's so remote, the consultants weren't able to get into it. So we had to shift gears a little bit. So that is part of the issue with having reference lakes, is that they're so well buffered by forest area, they can be difficult to access. But to answer the second part of your question, we do work fairly closely, as I mentioned, with planning and development on the future service communities as well. Our director's on the steering committee for those areas, and we've participated and provide technical review for the watershed monitoring, the watershed plan and the land suitability analysis as well. So we do provide a technical standpoint, and our subject matter experts provide recommendations that have been included in the reports going forward. So we work pretty closely with planning and development to make sure that we're looking at it from all different angles, but it is planning and development kind of leading that process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Councillor Austin.
Thanks, Ms. Chair, and agreed with much of what my colleague had to say, but I did want to just kind of pick out the one kind of piece there around whether this is our lane or not, right? This most thoroughly is. It's kind of a shared lane. The province has a role to play too, but where it's planning and development. It's like it's land use planning that creates the hardscapes, creates the roads that then impacts the lakes. It's municipal stormwater that then is also impacting the lakes, right? Like, I don't think we can say, it's not our lane when, yes, the province has primary environmental jurisdiction, but we are the municipal side is the cause of the vast majority of the problems that our lakes have. So that thoroughly, to me, makes this different than homelessness, which is something we're in by necessity because other orders of government are not doing their job. This is one we have a primary job. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Councillor Hartling.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am not sure that I know the answer, so I'm just going to ask it. Have you had the opportunity to monitor the life of a lake pre and post development? Has this program been in existence long enough for us to understand what the potential impacts of development around a lake might look like? Like when I think of the Dartmouth examples, it's been developed for a very, very, very long time. Do we have any experience or knowledge of what development around some of these recreation lakes looks like in terms of before and after? I know that you mentioned that we have a benchmark, but do we have statistics, cases in point, things like that?
Through the chair to the councillor, not precisely.
No?
We've been collecting data now for 4 years, so we don't have any lakes that were pristine at the beginning of that 4 years that now are built around and developed. But I do want to draw a distinction between developed and not developed, because it's really how it's developed.
Sure.
That can really make, we're
and
talking
that's a great
about,
distinction.
buffers and hardscapes and things like that. And so I think that's a really important distinction, is how it's developed makes a really big difference.
Can I ask, do you think that there's any value in monitoring it differently or more frequently when there is active development occurring at or near those lakes?
That is something that we're looking at in our program review. If there is a lake, specifically a priority lake,
Sandy
that
Lake
might have.
Let's pick one. Sure.
Yeah, Sandy Lake is an especially good example, and it may be a candidate for something like increased sampling intensity during a construction phase like that.
Is that something that would require further direction from council?
We don't think so.
Through the chair to the councillor, I don't think so. Just where, as Chris mentioned, we've had such an increase in volunteers that we've been able to decrease the consulting costs. So I think still within the budget that we have for those consultants, we would be able to, if we need to volunteer, I think Sandy Lake, for example, does have a volunteer group on it. So
I don't doubt that.
So the only added cost would be the lab analysis, which is quite minor in comparison. I think could be absorbed into our budget.
All right. Well, if it's possible to get an update on that, I'd be really interested to hear more about that moving forward. Thank you very much.
If I could just add through the chair to the councillor that we are currently sampling twice per year in the spring and summer phase, precisely because those are the two kind of most important phases that we can gather lake information. And so it's directly just to be as efficient and as targeted as we can. And so we are sampling during the two kind of primary phases where we want to get that data. And so it'd be diminishing returns with more frequent, but in a case like you suggest with Sandy Lake, it may be warranted.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I see no other names on the list. May I indulge a question? So thank you very much for the presentation, Chris. One of the nicest things that I get to do is to go out with some of the people in Third Lake and Second Lake when we do the testing. So councillors, if you ever have an opportunity to go out with them, it's a pretty cool experience to have. So I do enjoy that. When we're talking about development and the lake health, so if I have this correct, and I'm not sure I do, but districts 14 and 17, so we have the net zero phosphorus loading. So it's looking to say, has there been an increase in phosphorus post-development? And it's, I think, one of the only districts that has that. And so I'm just wondering, and it's difficult to measure. I mean, one of the things that I know about that, difficult to measure, and Emma, you and I have talked about this before, but I do believe that that is something that we should be looking at across the municipality when we're talking about how do we protect our lakes. So at some other time, I might sit down and have a conversation with you about how we can expend that next net zero phosphorus loading in our lakes as a result of development, because I think that that's an important thing to have happen. And the only other thing I have is, in the January report that we're going to be seeing, if there is a cost to whatever change, if something is recommended, would that not follow under our Health Act funding stream?
to the chair, I don't think so, because it would be planning public works budget that would be impacting more so. I mean, I'd welcome other input on that, but I don't think that would necessarily come through Halifax funding.
I was just thinking, as it is about protecting our lakes, and it is an environmental impact of the decision that Public Works makes. So there could be something maybe that we could talk about with that. But I thank you very much. I see no other names on the list. This is a wonderful conversation. Call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much, Emma. And now we can move on to motions, which we have none. In camera, we see none. Added items, we had none. Notices of motion, do we have any notices of motion? Seeing none, the date of our next meeting is January 15th, 2026, and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 2:12 p.m. Thank you very much, Councillor Steele. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.